21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
So Martin, here's something I think a lot of your listeners already know, but haven't said out loud yet. The definition of success most business owners are chasing was never actually theirs. They inherited it from family, from culture, from the people around them. And no matter how many milestones they hit, it never quite feels like enough. Because the whole game was built on someone else's criteria. And I know this because I lived it. At 36, I had fivefold net worth growth in 10 years. Businesses across 2 continents, all of it. And yet I nearly died in a car crash because I was running so hard, I fell asleep behind the wheel. And to make matters worse, my wife one day turns around and tells me that she doesn't recognize me anymore. And you know, the thing is, Martin, it wasn't because I was doing anything wrong. I was doing everything I was supposed to do. And that's what made it very confusing. The system I was following was working perfectly. It just wasn't my system. My name is Saahil Mehta, and I help business owners redefine success so that they can live a life of greater fulfillment, achieve success like they've never achieved before, and move towards a zero regret life. Martin, as I mentioned, at 36, I hit all the attributes of success that I defined in my 20s. I had a net figure in 7 figures. I was married, driving a Porsche, living in a 6-bedroom villa, traveling the world, a lifestyle that I could only dream of. But I didn't feel successful. I felt something was missing. I felt somewhat hollow inside. And so I started asking myself, why? And to that, I realized that I had inherited the definition of success. And so it was time to redefine what it meant to me. Not what my parents told me, not what the school system taught me, not what the media or social media is telling me. And while I was on this journey, I went on this retreat with some fellow entrepreneurs, and we all agreed to 2 words. And those 2 words were no judgment. Now, all of a sudden, I felt this huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I didn't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. I didn't have to wear this mask of pleasing others. I could just be me. And the only way to describe this trip over the last few days was euphoric. And as I came back from this trip, I told myself, if I want to discover what success means to me, I need to make myself the number 1 priority. Now, the previous version of me would think, oh, Saahil, that's being selfish. You're supposed to serve others. But what I realized, and I'm sure you've all heard this before, if my cup is almost empty, what is there to share? But if my cup is overflowing, I can be a better husband, a better father, a better son, a better co-founder, a better boss, a better friend. And I can reach, it's limitless what I can reach. And so I asked myself, how am I going to find out what success means? Because I asked people, I searched on the internet. I was so curious to discover, but I realized that everyone had their own perspective, and I had to create a system that was easy for me to understand. Now, as a mountaineer, I always look to nature to find answers. And while I was on one of my high altitude mountain trips, I asked myself, I said, Saahil, you have this concept called the 7 summits. These are the tallest mountains on each continent. And as you summit all 7 of them, it's like you've conquered the world. So I asked myself, what about your inner 7 summits? To conquer your inner world. And that's how the journey began. I said, right, well, let me decide what these 7 summits are for me. And some people may say, well, why 7? Why not 2 or 3, something a little smaller and easier? Well, if I said 3, most of you would select health, wealth, and relationships. It's too easy. But by encouraging you to pick 7, it makes you think, what else is important for me? And you know one thing that popped up for me, Martin? I realized that fun and recreation was a very important element for me, among many other items. So in this framework, I started to define what these 7 summits were for me. And then I said, okay, now that I know what are the most important things that make up success, because it's never one. I can't be a billionaire and have no family, no health, no fun, no community service, no personal growth. It just doesn't work. Success is never just succeeding on one mountain. It's about climbing the 7 most important ones. So now I ask myself, well, I've identified the 7 most important areas. What does the summit look like? What does the top look like? And I noted it down. And then the next question was, where am I now? And so that gave me the gap between where I am and where I need to get to. And you know the best thing about this is, Martin? Because as a business owner, one of the things that I struggled with is decision making. Should I choose option A? Should I choose option B? Perhaps C? And before I was very narrow-minded. All I saw was, business growth or making more money. And that's the decision I made. But what I didn't realize is that every yes I make, I'm saying no to something else. And the key question becomes, is that a no I'm willing to accept? And is it giving me more pain than I'm getting from the pleasure of the yes? And if so, maybe I need to rethink that decision. So the 7 Summits framework gave me a way to understand what the net effect was. That when I said yes to something, how did it impact the other 6 areas? And was I going overall up the mountain, or mountains, I should say, or was I going overall down? And if I was going down, again, maybe I should rethink that decision. Martin, I'm really glad I was able to discover this framework for myself. Because now when I look back, I see, had I continued on that path that I was on, it was only leading to one place, and that was burnout. No matter how hard I tried, it wasn't enough. No matter how hard I worked on my relationships, I was struggling with them because I would avoid conversations that were challenging to have, because in my mind I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a conflict. Let's hope it gets better over time, or let's slip it under the rug. But the reality is it never went away. I was facing some health challenges. I would wake up with a blocked nose, a heavy head. I was bloated because of constant inflammation in the body. But what I did was I just ignored all these messages because I know better. I have to focus on work. I have to push harder. I need to go faster. I'll get to these other things later. They're not so important now. And can you imagine, even with the car crash, you'd think that I would change when it almost cost me my life. But the thing that I did change was I just said, Saahil, you know what? Just stop driving at night. That's your solution. So even when I got punched in the face, I chose to ignore it. Now, luckily for me, I caught this at an early age where I could still make shifts without it getting too late. What if I ended up with something which was a chronic health issue? What if my wife one day says, that's it, I'm done, see you later? What if the children tell me, Dad, we don't want anything to do with you? So let me tell you a little bit about how I worked on this framework that helped me to get more clarity and start making the decisions that were important for me to succeed in all aspects of my life. So as I mentioned previously, you choose your 7 summits. And these aren't given to you. It's your choice. It's your life. You get to choose what those 7 are. The 7 mountains you wish to climb. You've described what the summit looks like. You've described where you are now. That gives you the gap. Now, here's the thing. Not each and every one of these is equal in priority or importance. Basically, you're juggling 7 balls every single day. Now, these balls, some of them are made of crystal and some are rubber. So as you know, if you drop the crystal ball, it's going to smash into thousands of pieces. The rubber ball, okay, you might drop it, but it has the opportunity to bounce back. A simple example is if I drop the ball of health and I end up getting diabetes or a heart attack or cancer or something that is possibly irreversible, or where there's a huge shift in my body where I'm on medication for life, it's never going to be the same again. Whereas money or finance, I look at it as, okay, I could lose it, but I trust myself and the ability to make it back again. And what I realized when I was looking at this, when I categorized from these 7, which ones were crystal balls and which one were rubber balls, I was spending a lot more time on the rubber balls than I was on the crystal balls. And it was easy to discover. I just had to look at my calendar. Where's my time going? Work, 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 work. A little bit of social health. We do a little bit of it, but these issues with bloating, that's just part of life. That's part of growing older. But no, if something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't, and it needs attention. And so as I realized that it's not just the 7 summits I have to look at, but also which ones are the higher priority. Because I've worked with too many business owners who tell me, yes, health is my top priority and family. And then during conversation and seeing their calendar and how they spend their day, as a coach, I have to be the mirror. I say, look, I'm just sharing, calling it as it is, but your time and energy is going in these other areas, even though you've told me that health and family is important. Oh, yes, I understand, but I'm just making a sacrifice now because I'm, as soon as I get to this next purchase or this next level or make this much more, I'm going to focus on my family or my health. But what I've realized after coaching them for many months, after that one sacrifice is over, they make another sacrifice. And then once it's sacrifice after sacrifice, I just tell them, hey, it's not a sacrifice anymore. It's a choice. So let's be honest with yourself. If you're saying health and family are the most important, either live it or change the priority. But let's not kid ourselves. So now you have this wonderful tool of the 7 summits, where you are, where you need to get to, which ones are the highest priorities. And that's what allows for decision making to be much more clear. Because, like I said before, every time you say yes, you've said no to something else. And as long as you're happy with that decision, go ahead and make it. But understand the full picture. When I talk about this exponential success blueprint and I tell people about these other areas of life that they need to take into consideration so that they can feel fulfilled, a lot of people go, well, all these feelings, will my business still succeed if I spend less time on it and I'm spending more time on these other areas? Well, let me just share a personal example with you. Fast forward 10 years from the time I started this journey. In 2022, my father passed away. And we were business partners. And we were shared responsibility. All of a sudden, everything comes on my shoulders. And that too, at the time of when I'm launching my coaching business as well. Now, the obvious thing to do, if you saw it from the outside, was, hey, Saahil, drop the coaching business because the business needs your time and attention. You don't want that ship to sink. But when I looked at my framework and what success meant to me, coaching was a big part of it. And I did not want to let it go. But Martin, you can't do it all. If I try to do everything, it means I'm going to have to work more hours, and there certainly aren't more than 24 in a day, and that's going to lead me to burnout. So I said, Saahil, if this is what you need, if this is what you want, find a way. And so I looked at all the decisions I make, and I realized I was making way too many decisions that could be made by other people. I only wanted to make the decisions that only I could make or the ones that I enjoy. And everything else, I either empowered or delegated. So I grew my team a little bit. And yes, it was painful in the beginning because they will make mistakes. They're not going to be the same as me. They're not business owners. They don't have the same drive potentially. They don't have the same risk involved. But I knew if I was patient and I was built the right processes and systems, it can work. And in the 4 years since my dad passed away, these have been the 4 best years we've ever had in our business. And we've doubled our net worth in the last 4 years. And not only was I able to delegate and empower others, but I'm now getting home by 6:30 to have dinner with my kids. I'm enjoying the mountains, which is a huge passion of mine. I'm able to enjoy my hobbies and friends and focus on my meditation, on my exercise. And in 2025, in the business that brings in the most revenue within our group of companies, I worked 1 day a week. And it was the best year that we ever had. Now, I did tell my employees at that point, I'm seeing a correlation here that the less amount I spend in the company, the better the company does. So maybe I'm the bottleneck. It was a very humbling experience, I have to admit. But the point I'm trying to make with all of this is it is possible. It is possible to have health, family, enjoy life, and be successful on a monetary level as well. So, Martin, I want to give everyone listening something I normally reserve for my private coaching clients, and it's called the Zero Regret Success Kit. If you've built the business, you've got the net worth, you've checked every box, you were told to check, and there's still a quiet voice saying, something's missing, this is for you. The first piece is the success audit. It's what I use with my private clients on day one. You'll complete it in under 10 minutes or so, and it will show you exactly where the gaps are across 7 dimensions of a fulfilling life. Which areas you've been neglecting while building the business and which ones to focus on first. Most people tell me it gave them more clarity about their own life than the last 20 years did. The second piece is the success redefinition session. This is the exact starting point I use before we go deeper into my $30,000 coaching engagement. It's a private 45-minute call where I personally walk through your audit results with you and map out the path from where you are to where you actually want to be. This is only available to the first 5 people who grab it. Once you have both of these, you'll know exactly what's been off, and you'll have a clear first step towards building a life of success on your terms. So go to podcast.sahilmehta.com/entrepreneur. This is a website I set up exclusively for this audience. Make sure to grab it before the 5 spots are gone.
"21st Century Entrepreneurship" with Martin Piskarik.
And if you'd like to find out anything more, then please visit www.sahilmehta.com. And you can also find me on social media such as LinkedIn or Instagram, or check out my YouTube channel as well.